What's going on, guys? Greg here, and I'm super stoked because we have Brad Martin now from 6th Division, who is one of my earliest mentors and inspirations when it comes to productizing services. And so it's been a while since we caught up, and he's done a lot in regards to innovating on how to productize services. So, Brad, thanks for joining me today. We're going to jam on how others can be doing more productized services and adding recurring revenue.
Sweet. You're welcome. Super excited to be here. Always fun to we can't uncover as we have conversations.
Yes. And as you guys will learn, two things. Brad's really amazing at making the complex simple, and two, very focused on using the right words because he believes words matter. And I do too, especially when it comes to defining things and all of us being on the same page. So we're going to kind of help people, Brad, through this kind of notion of how can I productize my service and add scalability through, like you said, recurring revenue and products and programs, kind of through a lens of how you did it with 6th Division. So I know that there's kind of like, where do we begin this conversation? I know not tacticals.
Let's go here. So quick backstory, 6th Division, we are a marketing automation, a client journey consulting and implementation service. So if you want to have a more systematic, more consistent client journey, gets more leads, converts more into clients, makes them happier. And usually our clients come and they run into the wall of some piece of software that they bought. Keep, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, Go High Level, whatever it is. Like, hey, there's this tech that's going to make my life easier. But like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not a tech dude. So how do I put all this together and make some magic work? That's the world that we live in. We've been around 10, 11 years now, and we have been through all the ups and downs of, basically right now, 90+% of our revenue is we're working one-on-one with clients. This is who we're talking, right? I'm working one-on-one with clients, and we went through having to work with one-on-one, and we're going to custom build all these quotes. We're going to custom design all this stuff, and it's kind of all over the place. And I can only handle so many clients. And we navigated through that. We navigated into how to create some systems around the services that we offered, how to shift that into recurring revenue, and then how to actually take some of the pieces that we were delivering as part of our service, and then at no extra cost to us, create additional revenue streams that were much more scalable. So that's the background. Our revenues have, they've gone all over, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. So we did 7 figures in our first year, and then we just barely broke $1 million to 1.6 to I think we did 2.8, and then we got to about 3+ million, and then we're back down right about 1.2. That back down is 100% on purpose. We'll get to that. All that is important in the story. My point in all that for anybody listening is not oh, look how amazing he is. No, I don't care. I'm probably not going to see you face to face. I don't care what you think about me. The point of it is, I have most likely been in your exact shoes, and I have most likely stayed up late at night stressing about and wondering about the exact same things that you have. And so I'm here. I'll share some of the lessons that we learned, and I can't even claim any rights to any of them because I beat my head way too many times before I finally succumbed to truth and just took them on. So that's a little backstory about little context of anything that I share is coming through that lens. I should add to all of what I'm going to share with you is done while I started my business. I got laid off from my prior job. Doesn't matter. We'll skip that sob story. I have 5 kids. My youngest was 6 weeks old when I got laid off. So that entire journey is with 5 kids. My oldest was, I guess they're about 10 or 12 years apart. So my oldest probably 10 or 12. No, actually they're 8 years apart. So it was 5 kids, 8 and under, went through that. And that's not to be oh, wow, no, it's just there was other stuff. So I get it. It's not I was this solo dude, oh yeah, I got all the time in the world to just figure this out. I was no, I kind of got to figure this out because I have to be present as a husband and a father. And so anyway, that's the context. Fair enough. That wasn't too over the top, right? Okay, cool. All right.
No, that was perfect.
Okay. All right. So the idea is, how do we take a services business? How do we productize it? I might use a different word when we get into that, but you'll see why. And we'll just get clear on the words like we talked about. How we look at recurring revenue and see if that's something we might want to plug into the picture. And then how we can actually add additional product lines that are more scalable using what we already have. That's kind of the idea, what we want to talk about today. But I do think it's really, really important before we get into any of that is to stop and ask a question. This is actually a question my dad asked me when I was growing up, and I thought it was crazy until I got older. Okay, so we went to go see Aladdin. Now, I'm the 6th of 10 kids. We get in the Suburban. And I remember, to this day, I remember my dad turns around, sets his arm up on the front seat, and he's okay, what do we want to have happen here? And I'm like, what are you talking about, old man? I want to go to the movie theater because we did not go to the movie theater. I'm crossing my fingers. We're going to get some popcorn because we never bought popcorn. Not with 10 kids. I just want to go watch a movie. But the power of the question, what do we want to have happen here? What are we actually trying to create? What does success look like is a question that not enough entrepreneurs ask. And what happens is they hear something that sounds great and is actually true, but it's completely out of context of their situation, but they run with it because it's a true principle. I think the most dangerous thing in the world is a true principle out of context. Because all true principles live within context. There's always a situation where it's no, you should not do that, even though on paper, that sounds really good. So I think the very first thing we have to talk about is, what do you actually want to have happen? What are you trying to make happen? And when have you got there so that when you get there, you recognize it. It reminds me of the scene with the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland where she comes up to the cat. It's like, yo, where should I go from here? And the cat's like, well, it depends on where you want to get to. And she's like, oh, I don't really care. He's like, well, it doesn't matter then. Just keep going and you'll get there. It doesn't really make a difference. So with any clients that come work with us, the very first thing that we have them do is we have them fill out, it's called a return document. And we get them really clear on what is the outcome that they're trying to create across what I believe are the only three currencies that we have, which is time, energy, and money. So how much time can this business take? And I don't mean in day one, because you got to go build it. So there's an investment, right? But like when this thing's humming, and I mean humming like you could just sit on it and ride it, like let's say for the next 20 to 30 years. It's not a commitment for you commitment phobes out there, okay? It's not a commitment. You're just saying, hey, for me to just settle in and just like ride this thing, about how much time am I comfortable working in the business? And then how much time do I want to be out of it? And it's not just time, it's really like time and also what does the schedule look like? So sample, answers to that question are, I want to work 20 hours a week. I want it to be basically like 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, roughly between like 10 and 3. I don't want to have to do any work in the evenings. So I want to go pick up my kids from school. I don't want to have to do anything on the weekends. I don't want to have to travel, whatever. So it's kind of like, what does your schedule look like in general? And the reality is if we can get to like 80% of that in the world that we live in, it's like you're freaking crushing it, right? It's like phenomenal. So that's the first piece of the return. Second piece is energy. And energy for me is what are you spending your time doing? So let's get clear at the very beginning. What do you want your role to be in the business? We've got to get that dialed in so that you understand what you have to put around you so that when you're spending that 20 hours, it can be 40 hours, it can be 60, it can be whatever you want it to be. There's no right or wrong answer here. But whatever it is, you are doing the things that you want to do. So that's the next piece. And then the last piece is cool. And how much money? And again, this has to be like something you can just settle into. And what you're looking for is what's the next milestone that would have you be really excited. So it's not, oh, I want to make $10 million. Yeah, so do I. But I also am not willing to sacrifice my time schedule to go do a bunch of extra work to go chase $10 million because I cannot powerfully answer this question. What does $10 million give me that 5 million doesn't? What does 5 million give me that a million doesn't? And even down to what does a million give me that an acceptable level of like steady recurring income doesn't give me, right? So you got to ask that question. You're trying to come with like, you want to identify, I call it the floor, not the ceiling. The floor is what's the minimum level to be acceptable for me to be like, I could just sit on this thing for 10 or 20 years or whatever. And then obviously everything we're doing is we're trying to get more. I want to make more money for less time, but I'm clear what my floor is. All right. Does that make sense? Like that's the place to start, I think, with everything.
Yeah. And I want to ask a question on that. I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Do you call it the return because it's sort of like what you put on that sheet is what the business needs to return to you to make it worthwhile to ride
100%. Everything you put into the business is the investment. This is your return. Most entrepreneurs think that business is about you going and serving other people, and they forget that value is only created when both sides of an equation win. If you're not winning at your return, you're creating a failing business. Even if your clients are super happy, it's a failing business because the function of the business is to serve you first and your clients, period.
Yes. And so one of the things we talked about last time, and this maybe comes up again later, but like the ego, one of the biggest struggles that I see people, and myself included, is like, why 10 million and not 5? Why 5 and not 1? And I think the first instinct answer for most people, I'm guessing, at least for me, came from a place of ego. And how do you think about the people that when they come out with this number out of the gate, they're like, oh, well, 5 million versus 10 is like the amount of impact that I can have is going to be da 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 da. And it's like, they're like trying to change the world, which
cool, you're living in a fantasy land, is my opinion. Living in a fantasy land. The whole idea of, so impact is great. And that's a great thing to talk about. But it's like, for me, it falls in the cotton candy type conversation. It's very fluffy, but there's not a lot to it, right? It's just sort of there. And if this was like a live event, somebody'd be like, well, whatever, impact, whatever. I'm like, I get it, but you can't really have any meaningful conversation about impact other than we talk in theoreticals. I want to talk in actuality. So the truth is if you told me that you were trying to get to $10 million as like in your bank account, or you're trying to get to $1 million a year or $500,000 a year take home, whatever, I would tell you that you're wrong and that your goal is stupid. And here's how I know. There's no way if you actually did the math, you'd end up at an even $500,000 or an even million. And there's a couple of things about it. Any of those numbers, you want to know why those numbers immediately are red flags? Because the year has 12 months. The reality is you're going to set some benchmarks based on monthly income. So if you're really trying to get to $1 million, are you telling me that your goal every month is going to be $83,666,666,666,000? No, you're going to do like, I want to do $80,000 a year, which is $960,000, or $80,000 a month, which is $960 for the year. Or you're going to do 100, which is 1.2. It's not $1 million. And the only reason why you pick the number is because you've actually done the personal budget and you actually know the math of where the money's going to go. And that number will never be a round, even number. So unless you tell me, no, it's this much money, but hey, heads up, I actually just rounded up so it was easier for me to track. Okay, then I'm cool with that. Most people haven't done that though.
Right.
And you actually pre-spend your personal budget and you reverse engineer to the top end number that you want. And that's just from a number standpoint. And then the last piece of that is you have to have a healthy amount of practicality. So when I did this the first time, it was like, all right, I'm going to go on a trip every quarter with my wife for like 3 or 4 days. It's going to be amazing because that's what I want. And that's what I should have because I've got this freedom. And we're going to do 4 trips as a family. And then I'm going to do this 1 kid, 1 parent trip with my kids. And my wife's going to do the same thing. And then I looked at it, I'm like, who am I kidding? My girls are in competitive dance and my 3 boys are in sports. We don't have that many weekends available in the year. So it would be completely stupid of me to worry about trying to go chase this big, massive number that's not actually going to be something that I can practically chase anyway. So the key is that this answer is not found out there. It's not found because somebody else said something you say, I like that. It's found because you look at yourself and you say, all right, where do I want to spend my time? How much time do I want to spend there? Which means this is how much time I have to allocate to my business. What am I really good at? And it feeds me energy in the business. I'm going to do that. What do I not like to do? Well, I don't want to do that because that takes away from my energy in the business, but also my energy when I'm home with whoever I'm around. And then same thing for money. Where do I need to spend my money? That will tell me how much I need to make. Pad it a little bit. You should put in there that you want to be saving and investing, for the future, whatever, but figure out all that math is figured out. Then you have a real number.
Love it. Cool.
All right. So that's step 1 is figure that out. It should be written. It should be printed. There should be no question when someone's like, yo, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to make $400,000 a year. I'm trying to make $480,000. I need $40,000 a month. And the reason why is because I take this much out for taxes. I put this much aside to invest. I put this much aside over here so we can just go play and do whatever we want. This much covers my bills and it's broken down this way. All right. You know where you're going. I want to work 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. I want to be in the office. I'm going to show up at like 10. I'm leaving at 2 because I want to pick up my kids. I want to be able to do stuff in the morning, whatever the numbers are, right? And I'm literally just making numbers up. It doesn't matter. You choose. And this will be the hardest thing. The hardest part of this is for you to choose and then not feel bad about it, not feel awkward about it, not feel ashamed about it, that you either picked too high or you picked too low. And what I would say to that is, oh my gosh, grow up.
Yeah.
Grow the frick up.
Yeah, Todd Herman said something like, I'm in a group with him, and someone made a comment like, knowing what you want is the hardest thing as an entrepreneur. And he was like, no, admitting what you want is the hardest thing.
Yes, amen to that.
Because you think you're going to be judged by what other people might think. If you're like, I only want to have an $800,000 a year business, and like, how are they going to judge me if they think that I should want to have a $5 million a year business,
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, grow up and freaking decide. We may get into that, but decide right back there too, decide. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So that's the first part is before we even talk about this idea of, all right, how do I productize my services and make this serve my life better? And how do I do recurring revenue? It's like, well, I don't know if you should. Go figure out what you want first, then come back and then we can talk about it. Okay. Now, so the assumption is that with that exercise being done, I'm in an agency services business and I want some more flexibility, some more freedom, some more consistency, some more predictability, and some more scale to whatever degree that is, right? So when I started off, I was probably like most people. It was me, myself, and I was having some conversations with people and they would be like, all right, here's what I want to do. And in the sales conversation, I would come up with the answer and I would do this whole intricate, great plan. And then I would debate how much I should charge them because I didn't want to lose the deal, but I also didn't want to give up money. So it was almost like we're in a dating relationship where it's like I'm playing all the mental games, right? And then one day a buddy called me, pretty sure it was Travis Smith. He texted me and this was probably 7:30 or 8 at night. I remember because we're in our first house, 1,600 square feet, 5 kids. Okay. And I was just putting my kids and I'm walking down the hall and I get a text and he's like, hey, dude, do you have some time at all this week? I'm trying to put together this affiliate program. It was in Keep at the time. I got some questions. Can you just point me in the right direction? And I'm like, hey, give me 15 minutes. Let me get my kids down. Let's hop on a call. Because I try to be, this goes to the A, by the way, in Dollar Act. I try to be like, let's just get this done right now because I don't want it hanging over my head. That idea of I'm really good when I just work right here for me personally, you'll see that pop up over and over as we talk about this. So I'm like, give me 15 minutes. So we hop on a call at the computer in my open office, like a little area. We hop on a call and 20 minutes later, his whole affiliate program was set up. And he sent me a message that he's like, holy crap. It was like just watching you move. It was just efficient. This is what it taught me. What it taught me is I was doing 90% of the value in a sales conversation before anybody ever gave me money. And I could actually build most of the things that they said that they wanted in the amount of time that it took us to have a conversation, for me to come up with the proposal, to figure out what I wanted to charge them and go back and forth. So I was like, all right, hold on. We got to change something about this. So I lived in that world initially. And then I realized that's not for me. That is for the birds. I'm not interested in that anymore. 2 realizations that I was doing this kind of one-on-one solo contractor work. And the first one was I do not want to be quoting custom projects for the rest of my life. It does not work for me. So something has to change. The second thing is I'm not built to just do something by myself. I need to be working with the team and I want to be building something. So those 2 realizations happened in this phase. It was called Infuse My Business because we were working with, it was Infusionsoft at the time. And so so that business lasted like maybe a year or something. And then I was like, no, this is not going to work. And we eventually then started sixth division. And when we started sixth division, remembering that, I was like, okay, at least enough sense. I was like, this has to work for us. I didn't totally learn the lesson though, because we started with the recurring revenue program that was like, hop on and we'll go custom do this thing. It was like the traditional, like, yeah, just send me whatever you want and we'll just kind of try and get it done. And hopefully we keep you happy. It's not going to work. It's like, wait, not nearly enough.
That's exactly how I started. And I was like, this
yeah,
is
it's
a
like,
horrible idea.
It'll be great. And then it's like, I'm on a call. We kind of got it, but then they send something else, but I have no structure to handle it. So it's like, okay, hold on. We got to figure out a structure. We actually kind of stumbled into it. And so here's what we did. We were going to an event. It was Infusionsoft Keeps. At that point, it was their big event. We were a major sponsor. We had a chance to sell in an evening session. And so we went to the event with actually 3 offerings. I don't know if I've ever told you this story before. We went with 3 offerings because you got to have 3 offerings in your menu. One was this 2-day makeover where you come out to our office. We work with you. We get a whole bunch of stuff done in 2 days. The second one was a monthly recurring subscription that was what we had tried before and it sucked. And then the last one was a $100 a month membership because we need to have something that could scale. Keep in mind, we're like 6 months old at the time. Okay. So no real infrastructure, no real learnings, no real whatever. So we go to the event. Fast forward real quick. Coming out of the event, we sold a whole bunch of makeovers. We sold one monthly thing that lasted about 1 month and we sold no monthly recurring membership programs. Thank heavens. So when we were going there, we sold this 2-day makeover and there's a whole story. Like I woke up on the day we were supposed to sell from stage. My bank accounts, personal business were overdrawn. It was phenomenal, really like confidence boosting. We got up on stage. We sold a ton of them. Presentation went really well. I mean, we sold a ton. I was like, oh crap, now we got to schedule these and now we have to go deliver. And in that moment, it was one of those like, I don't know if you ever had this in your life where it's like, you have for a split second, you can see the future that's about to come. And you're like, oh, not that one. We are going to make a decision right now. That's like, we are not going down that path. So I had this brief moment of like, nope. We are not about to do 8,000 different emails back and forth to try to schedule. We have to control how this thing is going to work. And we had some people that were like, hey, will you come travel to us or whatever? Because again, this is the very first time we sold it. Another moment, I was like, no, look, this is real simple. I can either travel with my team. We can travel 4 times a month or everybody else can travel once. Nope. They can all travel once. So I want you to pay attention to some of these things if you're listening, because the point of that is, no, it has to work for me. I got 5 kids. There's no way I'm traveling every single week to a different business. Not going to happen. You guys can travel one time. And I'm distinctly having that thought. No, I either travel all the time or you all travel one time in the history of your business. You can freaking get your butt on a plane and travel out here. So that was one big recognition. Then it was like, okay, these people are going to come out. How do we make sure that this doesn't just explode on us? Because we sold a ton, which was really exciting. And then when you sell a ton, it's really exciting on the sales side, but on the delivery side, it's like, oh, this could be a friggin' problem, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You know what I'm talking like, oh, great. I got a ton of, oh crap. I got a ton of clients. So like, all right, we cannot follow any of the traditional paths. So we ended up setting up like a scheduling tool so people could just go schedule themselves. That was one thing. I was like, got to make this more systematic. So we set that up. And then the process for us delivering, we sort of stumbled into it. And then I was like, oh, that is what we need to do. And it's become a thing that we've taught people because it helped me uncover a principle, which is 1, structure lets you get more done in less time. This is a really important principle. Structure lets you get more done in less time. And when people try to buck the structure, you basically tighten down. You have to break the horse. Okay. In this case, the horse is your client. I'm not saying clients are all horses. You get the idea. Okay. You have to establish a system, number 1. And then when you have a system, preparation is the ultimate magnifier of experience and of value being created. So let me just break those down. So I'm going to tell some lessons that happened as we evolved the makeover over time. So it's not just this initial set, but here's ultimately what we settled into. Somebody signed up for makeover. We would do a pre-makeover kickoff call. It's like 60 minutes long. So the very first iteration, when we do that call, get on the same page. So we had a pretty good idea of what they want to do when they came out. When they came out initially, we had 5 or 6 businesses that came out together, but they all had somebody from our team that they were working with. So we would meet together. If I'm being totally honest, it was because I didn't trust anybody else. No, I got to be in there so I can establish expectations. We would go separate for like 3 hours and everybody would go do their consulting work to come up with a plan of what they were going to build. And then at lunchtime, we would do a little mastermind. That's what I called it. Really good with words, by the way. Call it a mastermind. Everybody could come back and we could share what we were about to go work on. That was code for, again, I don't trust you guys. So you need to come back so that I can see what you're about to go do with the clients and I can make sure we're on the right track and maybe do some course correction. I may have created some frustration with some of my team members from time to time. I'm like, no, not that path. Do a pretty good job. Like, that's going to be a problem with that particular client. Maybe we should consider this. And then we spend the next day and a half implementing. When we first started, we were not good at having people leave where everything was done. So we had this big overlap that would happen. Like client 1 would come in for 2 days and then they would trail on for 2 to 3 weeks. Client 2 would come in and they would trail on for they'd come in the next week. But now you got like 3, 4, 5. They all start to stack up. You got these ongoing clients that was supposed to be done before. So that was like the very first iteration. The final iteration, if we take these principles of system and structure, lets you get way more done. And then preparation is the ultimate magnifier of experience and value getting done. This is the current iteration, I guess. This is where it sort of ended up. Somebody signs up. When they sign up, we came up with a system of how we implement our own terminology. technology, our own methodology, our own set of worksheets. Like, well, this is what we're going to walk through. Quick anecdotal story. That was inspired by a guy that helped us create our logos. We dramatically overpaid, only based on where our business was. We paid a lot of money to go to a guy that did logo work for way bigger people, but I love it because we've never changed either one of our logos and they're phenomenal. We went out to his house and we were there for a whole day and we sat there and this is what he did. It was beautiful. He pulled up a Google Doc. I think it was a Word doc at the time. It was way back in the day, but he pulled up a doc and all we did was we just walked through the document. And he's like, all right, I got this question. Boom. And he just took notes. I got this question. Boom. Just took notes. And I left and I was like, that was freaking dope. He didn't have to like be some wizard. He's like, no, we're just walking through the process. I know what work we're doing. We're doing brand work. The questions we ask are always the same. And if there's a section that needs to be skipped, we just skip it. So I remember coming back being like, if we could have that, then I didn't have to do kickoff call and the mastermind in the middle and like oversee. If we could have that where everybody followed the same system, couple of things happen. One, it's a system. We'll get way more done. Two, we can interchange people in our business. The goal that I wanted to get to is I could start with the client, work for 2 hours, have somebody else come in, review the documentation. They could pick up right where I left off, work for 2 hours. Somebody else could come in all the way throughout the course of 2 days and never lose a beat. We created that system for ourselves. That's the summary. And now what happens is you sign up, we send you into this training and we tell people on the sales call, yo, the first step is you got about 3 hours worth of video to go through. So deal with it. Like that's how we do the work is we're going to send you through the training. And here's why. Number one, your biggest challenge is you don't know how to think about the problem. I'm going to give you a better way to think about the problem. Number two, you will get very familiar with our terminology and how we talk about it. So that, number three, when we get on a call and start to talk about your business, we are light years ahead of every other person that you would normally talk with. We are aligned and on the same page about how to think about the problem and how to talk about the problem. We're using the same language. Now imagine all of you sitting there in your agency thinking, oh man, I get on a call with clients and I spend the first hour of the first call that's supposed to be this deep dive strategy session. And I'm just trying to get you to understand what I mean when I say term X, right? Or term Y. So they sign up, they go through the training. After they're done with the training, we do a kickoff call. Now we're on the same page. Now we go through a strategy session. We dial everything in. Then they would show up for 2 days. By the time they show up for 2 days, we pretty much already know what they're trying to build. And because we've done this enough, we do a whole bunch of custom stuff. But custom stuff is really just 80% the exact same crap as everybody else with like 20% over the top that makes it custom. Custom cabinets. What are custom cabinets? The same freaking box that sits in the behind every cabinet, except the outside's different. And maybe I'm technically slightly off on that, but the principle doesn't change, right? You talk about all the different kinds of cars and most of the cars are using the exact same underlying, I don't even know what the term is, chassis or whatever. It's like the same frame. Yeah. And then everything else on the outside is slightly different. So that was the next thing. He's like, well, we'll just pre-build the 80% of the tools. I'll get on a call with you. And 2 days before, when we first started, what it took us 2 days to get done, we literally get done in 2 hours. It's like, we're on the same page. I know what you want. I've got 80% of it done. We want to tweak this, this, and this. Boom, tweak, tweak, tweak. Okay, you walk out and it's like, all right, here's the stuff that we've already built. Here's the skeleton we've already built. Let's just go modify it, review it, tweak it, finalize, customize it. Boom, they're 4 hours in when we're normally doing a mastermind session before lunch, trying to figure out what we're going to do before we actually have done anything in the app. It's like, oh, it's already done. What's the next thing you want to do? So they come out, we do the work, and we got really good with our prep that when they come out, it's like, it's 2 days and you're out. When we're done with the 2 days, there's nothing else for us to do. So we even got to the point where we would tell them, hey, at 1 o'clock on the second day, we're done building. We're into documentation and implementation. So you can take this and you can be done and on your way. So we can be ready for the next client and not have this tail. So that first piece was really about, you use the term productize. The only reason why I might use the word systematize rather than productize, we mean the same thing, right? The point is that there's a system and there's a structure that's like, no, you're going to come in. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. It's done and it's off the shelf, right? It's done.
Like a factory. Yeah.
It's like a factory. It's just like check, check, check. And factories create custom stuff. So this is not about, it's just an assembly line. I don't do anything custom. No, everything we do is custom. It's not like I'm just, hey, come and buy this thing and then I'll just, there's no customization to it. No, we don't do anything that's not custom. Everything is 100% custom, but we can get done. And if I showed you like our initial like sizzle reel testimonial video, we had people coming in and this was 100% true. Like we got more done in 2 days than I would get done in 2 years on my own. And it's true because we have a system and because we prepare our clients for every single step in the process. And anytime we were going through and we find a point where it's like, oh, it didn't work out here. It's like, well, if it didn't work out at a particular step, we didn't do something before to prepare them for that. If there was any friction later on in the delivery of anything, it was like, well, we didn't do our job up here. So let's go change the end of our sales conversation. Let's go change that video that preps them so it reminds them, hey, don't forget that we had a guy show up to an implementation thing. He didn't bring a laptop or a computer or an iPad or anything. He just showed up. I'm like, oh, okay. we got to go back and be like, hey, I know that this sounds weird, but you're going to want to bring something to work with here. So the first phase, when you're in the middle of like this whole agency thing and everything's all over the place, is what I would do is I would look at what's your process. This is what led to our creation. It didn't end up being a single document, but how can I create a single Google Doc that I would pull up, and literally I would not leave it for the entire time we're doing consulting and strategy. I just run right through it. That is the consulting and strategy. That is the structure. And then within that, you get to apply your expertise to come up with better answers. But your expertise is not on the fly. I come up with the question to ask, or like I have the thing I need to solve. Like that's already established. I don't care if you're building websites. I don't care if you're doing marketing collateral or messaging or branding. You're asking the same questions every single time. You're really good at diving in deeper, but that initial outline of questions, that should be set somewhere, just done. I don't have to remember that. Anybody could step in and ask those. The better consultants are the ones that then know like, oh, you said that. Hold on. We need to go deeper on that. And having that initial underlying infrastructure makes it easier for you to do that.
Love it. So systemized versus productized. I think that was a good look. If you look at it from like an iterative process, yes, it is. You've picked what the outcome is. Hey, this is what we're getting done in these 2 days. Now let's refine that process so it's systematic. Okay, cool. Now it's so systematic that like it has specific deliverables and starting to look like a product.
Yeah, the only reason why I say systematize over productize, and I love both of them, is that productize starts to go like, well, just go buy it and then you have it over there. And the reality is this is one step before that. So I'm fine with the terminology either way, but it's one step before, which is, no, it's so dialed in and it's so systematic that when I come in to deliver it, I could literally walk in off the street, pull up this doc, you walk in and be like, okay, here we go. Let me just ask I don't have to like remind myself or get really geared up into my consulting stuff. It's like, no, let's just go. I'm just going to go through these questions and we're dialed in. So the very first step is take whatever offering you have. So you outsource and delegate to the system first before you try to bring other people in. So you, as the expert, need to have the system that you follow. Could be multiple worksheets, could be a single doc, could be however it is, but it's like, here's what we do every single time. And you follow it across all the different examples that come at you. So you've covered all the scenarios. Once you've done that, it's so easy to go get other people to come in and train them on your system. And then you record it. So like you get that dialed in and then you just record a training video. It's like, all right, so here's the process we're going to go through. First, you need to understand these terms, and then we're going to go through these. You record it like you're doing a training or whatever for your team. Then you have it documented. And then that's going to come into play later, by the way. But that's the systemization of it. And what you'll find is you can cut the time it takes for you to spend to deliver something literally in half or by 80%, because most of the time when people are overwhelmed trying to deliver, they're overwhelmed because they don't have a structure that they're following to deliver for their clients. Not that like the work is hard. It's that the underlying structure is off, so it's chaotic. But you get that dialed in, you can deliver really high value, highly customized services in a very, very short amount of time and with a very minimal amount of energy. All right.
I love it.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, so quick recap. We'll come up for air here. Step one, know what you want. Answer the question, what do we want to have happen here?
Yeah.
Step two is you're sitting in the middle. I got all these pieces moving on. Pick one thing that you offer, one of the services or whatever that you offer, and then go create and outline a doc that's like, here's how we would deliver it every time. And then start to run some clients through it and find the places where you haven't captured every single step. And then put those, if they say this here, then go here. Just outline that. And then what tools do you need so that it's easier to capture answers and document them so you're not going back to try and find crap? Get that done. Boom. Step two is done. You've now systematized it. Well, the last piece is you just do a video that's like, all right, here's how we go through this. Now step two is done. Once you have that in place, this is for me personally. So this would be like an optional step in the progression of your business. I also have a software company that in the course of that whole thing, we started a software company and I sort of fell in love with recurring revenue. I love the idea that every month my business is already covering its bills. And if I go sell something, great. And if I don't, it's really not that big of a deal. So there's a benefit to me to that. In addition, what I recognized is most of the time when you're in like an agency doing some sort of consulting or services or whatever, most of our clients are not actually better off if they work with us for 30 days and then we just leave them. In whatever time period that we're going to do, the amount of work that we can do is always greater than what their business can digest. And so we'll do this, come in and do this amazing project and hand it over to them. And then they only end up using 20% of it because they don't actually know what they're doing. They're actually better off if we help them with the digestion and the actual like adoption of whatever it is that we built. So that enter recurring revenue. So I don't know, it was a couple of years in, we started to add recurring revenue. We had people like, this is great. Now, can I just keep coming? But some of them wanted to come back out for a makeover, but others are like, can we just like do this thing on an ongoing basis? So the next piece we did is we added a recurring revenue piece So this is like over 8 years, but I'm going to accelerate through this piece. But initially our business was still like 80% upfront, one-time service offerings. We had to go out and hunt. We had to go find this stuff. And then it was like 15, maybe 20% recurring revenue. And then there came a time where some things kind of chaotic in the business. And we were like, you know what? We're not really interested in this one-time things. Like, I don't know about everybody else in terms of agencies, but it was exciting at first because we built a, $1-2 million business. Once that sort of excitement wears off and you get really clear about the time that you spend, like, it was not really fun to be constantly hunting $200, $250, $300,000 of upfront revenue every single month. And for us, I would go do a bunch of speaking. It's exhausting. I had 5 kids. They're starting to get older. They're starting to get into stuff. I want to be at their stuff, right? So we're like, what would it look like if we sacrificed big, really cool sales numbers for just recurring revenue? And so my business partner and I still remember we had a meeting. I can remember sitting in the office like, hey, let's just acknowledge that neither one of us are interested in 6th division anymore if it's not 100% recurring revenue, meaning it can just run on recurring revenue. So this was middle of the year, but we're going to shift to 100% recurring revenue. We want to have it done by Q1 of 2020. And so that now we had a sales team. There were like some infrastructural things that didn't really line up with that. We're like, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll figure it out. So we started to shift. Then COVID hit and that kind of accelerated it all. But eventually we shifted to all of the expenses in our business, profit included, are 100% covered by our recurring revenue. We didn't get rid of the systematized part of it or the preparation part of it. We just shifted it to where now what they're doing is they're buying recurring revenue and then people stick around longer. And so from pre-step 2, it's like I'm running around trying to figure out what my clients want. It's all over the place. Like, nope, I got a structure. I meet with you at this date and this time. Then we come together and then we're done. Like, it's very much like, check, you're done. You're off my plate. I'm moving on to the next one. I create an amazing custom thing. So that's the first element of calmness that gets brought into the world or into your world when you do this. The next piece was, what if we did it again, but it was all recurring revenue? And it was like, no, I just know when I'm going to meet with you every month. And I put a client in. And when I put that client in, I don't just put them in for next month. I've got 2 days they're going to take up. I actually put them in for the next 3 to 6 months. You're just taking this slot. And it's another level of like, oh, my life is easier. I can actually do better work. I can be a better consultant because I've got this consistency in place. And a lot of people that run agencies, my experience has been I don't know if scoff is the right word, but I think they doubt whether they can deliver their offering in like a 2-day chunk or if they can deliver it over like recurring revenue. And I would say you can. I don't think I've come across anybody that can. I have a graphic designer. She did some work with us initially early on and her stuff was all custom. And now what she sells, I love it. I was talking to her the other day. She sells like half days and full days. This is graphic design work. And you know when she does it? She does it from like 6 o'clock to like 10 or 11 at night. So she'll do a little strategy kickoff call. It's like literally just took the model we did. In one that's like, no, we got to do a bunch of back and forth. And I got this time. It's like, no, you buy a half a day or you buy a day. And then she might have some bigger project stuff, but I haven't needed any of that stuff since. So I think she does some website stuff that would be more like a structured deliverable. But a bunch of her time is like, no, it costs this much. It's a half day. We'll meet and talk. I'll get the idea. And then I do the work at night, which is basically like, you can't interrupt me. I'm going to do the work and I'll send it to you. Friggin' beautiful. It fits with her. It would not work for me because I got basketball and kids. It wouldn't work to do it at night. But I actually love the fact that she's working from 6 to 10 or 11. It works perfectly for her life and her schedule. And it's just like, it's a chunk of time. I'm going to give everything back and then we can decide if you need more.
Yeah, there was a guy that I hired years ago and he did a landing page in a day, like a sales page in a day. And we had a prep call. And then I basically needed to be available via Zoom on the day that he was working. And he'd check in with me.
Or whatever, right?
Yeah, he'd be like, hey, here's the header. Am I in the right direction? You liking this? And like, he just kind of like got my approval as he like piecemealed stuff out. And it was so easy. And like, he was done in one day.
So, all right. So we're kind of jumping back to really justifying the systematizing things, which is really important because your recurring is just that. But again, and here's the principle. The principle is if you're in a services business, you are selling your time. Stop trying to get around it. You are. What most people do that I think is dumb is they track their time. Oh my gosh, stop. Life is too short to track time. Nobody actually cares. So the key, this is the art. The art is you sell a chunk of time, but you don't sell it as a chunk of time. It's not like, hey, you're buying a day with me. It's like, no, we're going to do a landing page, but we're going to do it in a day. So what time is it becomes look, I don't know how crazy you are, but I want you to know that we're going to do a landing page in a day and I'm going to ask you questions. The fact that it's in a day inherently puts some restrictions around how much different, like going back and forth. If he does the header and sends it to you at 9:30 in the morning and you're tweaking it and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's an inherent understanding between you. One, he would never let you get that far. But if we did, bro, you were so picky about the header, we couldn't get to anything else. No, your landing page did not get done in a day. And no, I'm not giving you a refund. That's your own dumb fault. So you can put this together. I'm telling you, it is the hands down easiest way to have a services business that doesn't run you ragged. Is you're like, all right, how much money do I need to make? How much am I going to charge for the service? I can deliver it in a day or 2 days. I prep people. I give them some training with the course up front. They come in for the 2 days and I'm really clear. It's like, yo, we got the 2 days. I don't know what we're going to get done. Here's what you're buying. You're buying that you trust that I'm really good at what we're going to do. And I guarantee you that I'll get more done than you can get done anywhere else. So if we only get through the header, it means that you would have gotten less than the header done somewhere else. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Two things. One, you talked about how most service businesses can do this, which I agree. I think one thing that I don't know if you have a stance on this is what I don't agree with is web design is a perfect example of where I see people do this is they'd say, hey, it's 10 grand for the website, but you can pay me across 12 months. Then the client leaves in month 5 and all of your effort was front loaded, probably which was the first 2 days or that short window of time. And you never collected enough of the money. So it's like turning what should be a one-off project into just really you're just spreading out payments is different.
Let's be clear on a couple of things, okay? So first, again, we're going to come up for air. We talked about know what you want, answer the question, what do we want to have happen here, right? Number 2, we talked about you should systematize, productize your services. It just runs like clockwork, okay? And you can probably cram it into a day. And it could be, I do a day on Monday this week, and then I do next week. So we have some time in the middle or whatever. But it's like, look, you're putting boundaries, structure. It's like, I deliver this way. Client, you are going to have to operate within this or you're going to get less done, period. I don't know what else to tell you, but this is how we operate. If you want to go do a crappy way with somebody else, go do that. So that's structure. So now you're coming back into the recurring revenue piece, which is point number 3 in conversation. So a couple of things about this. Recurring revenue is not the same as a payment plan. Two totally different concepts.
And
recurring revenue
as a retainer
is not the same as a payment plan, okay? Which is not the same as a retainer. So 3 completely different concepts, all right? A payment plan means I agree to buy this thing from you for $1,000 and I'm going to make 10 payments of $100 each. With a payment plan, I have agreed to buy for $1,000 and I have agreed to make 10 payments. It mattereth not when the thing is delivered. It doesn't matter when you start and or stop using it. The payment plan has terms about a total amount to be paid over a certain number of payments. And that's really, really, really important distinction. I would really stay away from long payment plans. I actually like payment plans. I don't like to do more than 3. So when we did our makeovers, we started at $6,000. Eventually we got up to, I think we sold some at 15, but most of them were at the $12,000. From a business standpoint, I loved 3 payments because they usually scheduled about 6 weeks out. And then we would do a little bit of follow-up with one follow-up call a couple of weeks after. And I liked in our business that I had 3 payments of $4,000. Like our numbers we looked at were how much money is scheduled to bill this month, the next month, and the month after. And I knew we were in a good spot if we had that money set up. So like it would allow us to buy some dips in revenue. So I like rebates, but the person was agreeing to pay $12,000 or $10,000 or whatever it was. And it didn't matter if they did the entire thing in a week. It didn't matter if they never used it. It didn't matter. They were buying, coming out and doing the thing. So a payment plan is one thing. Okay. All right. So that's off the table, totally separate. So, and what I would say is if you're doing a one-time project that takes you a month or 2 months, like a website or something, you ought not to have a 10 pay. That's not what we're doing here. Now let's talk recurring revenue versus retainer, because those are more ongoing things. Don't do retainers. Here's why. Words matter. If I had you on retainer, Greg, so I have Greg on retainer, who's in control?
You.
Me. When I'm signed up into one of your recurring revenue programs, who's in control?
Me.
You. See? Okay. This is really, really important. And people are like, it doesn't matter. It's just a word. No, it matters. Because when I think I have somebody on retainer in my mind, whether I'm malicious or not, as a human being, I think, yeah, when I say jump, they say how high.
Yep.
When I'm in their program, I understand their program comes with certain terms and conditions and ways that it operates, and I'm going to try and operate within that. So you always have recurring revenue programs that people can sign up into, and then you explain how the program works, and they agree to how it works when they sign up into the program. Otherwise, no dice. Now, let's go back to the website example so we can get really clear about the difference between recurring revenue and a payment plan. So if I were doing websites and I wanted to have recurring revenue, there's a really important thing. Usually, if you're in a services business, you don't go straight into recurring revenue. You don't just go into like, hey, let's just start doing some stuff monthly. No, there's always a sprint at the beginning. Otherwise, it'll take you too long to get the person enough value for them to be excited. They're going to be 4 or 5 months into paying you monthly and be like, what the heck? Why don't I have this stuff done? So what you actually do when you go to transition from this systematized service into recurring revenue is the systemized service doesn't go away. You might do a little bit less. It doesn't go away though. It just becomes the way that you start the program they're signing up into. So to be very clear, we had our makeover, and I'll fast forward to kind of what we do now. And then when we get done, I'll go through like very specifically how we run it. But loosely put, the makeover is now a day. And because COVID and all that, we actually do most of them virtually, but it's a day where we're committed to that person. And then they roll into our recurring revenue program. But when I say that, what they actually do is they sign up into our recurring revenue program. We just start it with a service. So when they buy, this is the difference. When they're on the sales conversation, it's like, yeah, we've got this ongoing program. It's called the agency. You can come work with us. It costs you this much a month. It costs you this much up front. Here's how it works. We'll start with this day up front and we're going to get all this stuff done. And then you're in this monthly. And when our guys sign up, they sign up for anywhere from 3 to 6 to 12 months as a commitment, minimum of 3. And that's usually only if we do an offer. Most of the time it's 6 months. Because for us, we're like, you really need to be with us for 6 months to really have this thing get integrated and adopted into your business. And sometimes we'll make exceptions for some cases, but they're signing up into the program. And then we just keep a simple, systematic version of a service up front so that we can sprint with them and we can get a bunch of stuff done. And then they settle into this recurring program that they can go to so we can keep things going, keep the ongoing work that needs to happen happening. The retainer, that's not a retainer. A retainer is like, hey, if I want to use you, I'll use you. A recurring revenue program is like, no, we're going to meet at these dates and times. I'm going to help you get clear on what you need us to do. We're going to go do it. We're going to deliver it back to you. You're in for a certain amount of time. If you want to quit, you got to give us enough heads up. So like our rule is when you're done, tell us and your next bill is your last bill. That way we can wrap everything up. We can hand it back over to you. And also so that we're not like, oh, I thought I was going to have this much recurring revenue this month, but now it's gone. You can never mess with my current month's recurring revenue. It will always bill. Mostly next month will always bill unless you get to me before your bill hits in the month, right? And that's by design. That's on purpose. Okay, so payment plans are how you decide to break up payments when somebody buys a one-time offering. They are not recurring revenue.
Correct.
They can be used to create some smoothness and consistency in revenue, but I'd be really careful about going more than a 3-pay. It's just harder.
It's like simulated. It's not real.
You'll start to think of it like it's recurring revenue. It's not really recurring revenue. And in my opinion, if you're doing a 3-pay and you're still delivering a service, your service is probably taking on too big of a project.
So the biggest culprits of this, I do see as web designers and like web developers, like the ones that lean a little bit more into the creative side. You were about to say, like, if I were a web designer, here's what I would do. What would you do?
Exactly what we talked about. I'd get really clear on what I wanted, number one. And then number two, I would go create a systematic delivery. So we're talking like, let's say web designer, meaning I'm helping people design complete websites, right? Like somebody comes like, I want to redesign or I'm building a new website, right? Okay, so the first thing I would have is I'd have an initial offering that's going to hammer out the 3 or 4 most important pages in the website, which is going to be a homepage. And I would have a structure for the homepage. It would go something like this. There's a what we do section at the very top that has a headline. It has a subheadline, either a hero shot or a hero video, or it's a headline, subheadline. The next section down is the benefits bar that lists 3 primary benefits. The next section down is where you list off the struggle statements of how does the person know if they fit and they should work with you. The next section down is where you talk about what your philosophy is and what makes you a little bit unique and different, what they're going to get from you. The next section down would be a list of client testimonials. The last section at the bottom would be you and 2 or 3 points about why they should care about you. And then mixed in between every one of those sections would be calls to action. So the landing page in a day, I'd have the template. I'd already know what questions I'm going to ask them. Like we got a homepage. We need to have a programs page or a products, not solutions, by the way. Don't ever do that. Can we start a petition for never calling the things you offer solutions? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Anyway, there's a homepage. There's a who we help page. So client testimonial type thing. There's a what we do or how we help page, programs page. And then optionally, there's an about us page. But that's it. Like when somebody goes to buy with you, all they need to know is that story of what do you do? What are the primary benefits I'm going to get? What would I be struggling with to have it make sense? What's your approach and unique so I can decide if I like it or not? Do you have any success? Tell me a little bit more about yourself. Let me see if you've actually done this before. How can I give you money? That's all you need on a website. So my kickoff would probably be, hey, we're going to go through and do all of that. I'm going to get everything I need from you for all of that. And we're going to pick a primary color, a secondary color, a primary font, and a secondary font. And that would be like the initial service deliverables. We're going to hammer all that out so we have wireframed live together what this thing's going to look like. And I would have a template, which, by the way, I have already built because I had a web designer build me one in WordPress that and I know enough CSS to go hack it. But if it were me doing this, I would actually build my own template where I could go in and I could wireframe a live site. Literally, the questionnaire would be in the installation of WordPress. I would just go ask those questions. I would plug them straight down a page, put in the primary color, put in the secondary color, put in the primary font, the secondary font, hit save, and be like, yo, here's what it looks like. Let's talk about what you want to tweak. That would be day one. So we just build it and we iterate through it. Yeah. And then that would be the initial service. And then after that, it would roll into okay, you're with me for the next 3 to 6 months. Now here's what we have to do. We've got to refine this. We're going to get it up. And then we got to start thinking about how we're going to capture leads, where we're going to take them next. We would get into the product page. And I might even be able to do the product page and everything else in that one day. All systematized though. 80% of the work is done. And then the rest of the time in that day or two is us just modifying and tweaking. And I haven't really thought what the next steps I would do would be, but it's the collateral. Now we got to get to what your Facebook page look like. So it's all right, in month 1, we're going to go attack your Facebook page. We're going to attack your LinkedIn page or whatever your social page is. This, I would just have here's probably what we're going to work on. Now, if you have more complexity in your site, then we might not get that whole thing done in the first day or the first 2 days. And we might have to bump some of that back. This is what I think we're going to do. And every month we'll talk about it. And whatever needs to get done, that's what we're going to focus on. But we'll agree together and you'll be happy because we're going to agree to it together. So I would do something like that.
You totally haven't thought about that at all.
Yeah, no, I lied. I have lots of conversations about that.
Cool.
So that's the idea of the service would look like, because that's how I would deliver the service. And then it's like, well, look, you need more stuff. The website's done, but what about every other piece of marketing you ever do? All right, we're going to start working on that. What about your actual new marketing campaigns you come up with? Great, you're just with me and it costs $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month, and we're going to get this much done. And you don't have to worry about it. Just come to me and I'm going to handle all of this. And if you ever need to go faster, just pay me a little bit more money. We'll go faster. It's real simple. And then they're just in and you become a part of their team. All right.
I like it. So recurring support, that's one of the things that you said you were going to.
Oh, yeah. So, well, and it's not just recurring support. What about when you do a project and you're in that systematized phase and people have questions, or even in recurring when people have questions that are a little bit outside the scope of just what you're building. So again, one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Way back in the early day. Actually, I didn't see this one ahead of time. It actually happened. We got so many questions coming in like, this is not going to work to have all these clients stacked up. So what we did is we said, hey, any questions you have that are not specifically about the thing that we built for you, like, hey, how does this work? So like, it's a question that's kind of related, but you know what it's like. You've been in any sort of services business. Like, I did this. Hey, what about this other question? Like, you didn't pay for that. And now I got to have this weird, awkward conversation about how you didn't pay for my time, but you're taking my time, right? So here's what we did. We called them jam sessions initially, and they started out once a month. And it was like, look, if you have any questions at all, it's completely free of charge, even for our past service clients, completely free of charge. We'll get on. It's in a group setting. We'll hop on a call. It's a Zoom call. You come on, ask whatever questions you want, and we'll answer. We'll do whatever strategy you want, completely free of charge. And what it did is it literally cut the tail off of our projects, because then our coaches, our implementation reps, could be like, hey, that's a great question. That's one you need to take to the jam session. Brad will help you address it there.
Yep.
And I was like, we just don't have to deal with that. So all of those went to jam sessions. So we started doing them once a month. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. It fits my personality perfectly, because like I can take information in, process it quick, and be like, yeah, I just go do this, and this, and it works really well. So then we started doing it weekly, and now we do it weekly. And then it's the same thing with our recurring clients. They'll have questions. You know, we're working on like a client journey thing. They'll be like, hey, what about this thing? It's like, well, that's like a team thing. You should go talk to Brad. Or, hey, you're getting into some messaging stuff that we can spend some time on, but it's going to slow down what we build. Just go talk to Brad. He's really good at that. So all of that extra pressure of all those sort of related topics that don't quite fit into the project and will slow them down, you just bottle them all up into this one place where you can deliver a tremendous amount of value. And here's the kicker. Some people will use it a ton, and a lot of people won't use it at all. And when they do, like, oh my gosh, I should be here more, and then they don't come back. It's not hard to deliver. It's like, you know, when you have like the steamer pot and you push the button down, all the steam comes out, like the release.
Yeah.
It's like a release valve for all the pressure that comes with all those ancillary questions. So definitely, if it's me, I'd put that in like immediately and just tell all your clients, look, this is where you take your questions. The other thing we would do is we'd have a Facebook group, not to be like a crazy active one, but it's like, yo, here's the Facebook group. If you can't make a call, put your question here. On the call, I'll answer it. And then we record all of them. We post them into a place where they have access to all the recordings. So someone's like, hey, I'm going to be out of town, but this is what I'm working on. They post it. I'll go in and look at it. I'm like, well, here's what I think you're asking, the best that I can. Here's some ideas. It's part of the recording. It gets posted. They can go watch the recording so they get their questions answered.
And you stack that. So like for the person who doesn't deliver in 2 days, it's like, hey, this is included as a part of this, which is beneficial for them and you. Because like for us, it like took out all of the one-off emails that just came to us. And now it was like, we got almost 0 help desk tickets and everyone was coming to these 2 places that we controlled. But that could also become the ongoing stream.
It could be the ongoing thing. More than likely what it's going to be is it's going to be another one that's more scalable. So that's point number 4. All right. So what do we want to have happen here? Systematize that thing so you can just run it like a checklist, right? And part of that systematized is that you create the training and it's actually recorded. This is important for point number 4. So you systematize it into a single Google Doc. I'm doing that in air quotes for those of you that are just listening. Maybe it's multiple worksheets, but you have a system that is recorded like you're creating a course, but you just give it to your clients that are part of the service that makes your life easier. So that's one. The second piece is any one-off questions, they go to this. We do a call once a week, or we do it once a month, once a week, twice a month, whatever it is, we do it this. Mm-hmm. Here's where you go ask those questions. So that's step number 2 of systematizing. 3 is start to add recurring revenue and just have them buy into a program that allows you enough time with your client to actually make the outcome that you want, rather than lamenting that you only got them for 2 days and then they didn't get to do the stuff and then they were maybe frustrated. It's like, well, then just sell them into a 3-month thing or a 6-month thing and adjust your math accordingly. It'll make your business easier, by the way, and your revenue, like your income streams are better, and you actually deliver better value. Now, this leads to the 4th thing is cool. Well, how can I start to scale beyond just a services business? I'm going to go back to what you did when you systematized it. You actually have already created all the tools that you need. So your training on your system, it is a course. And if you do it well, what you'll find is people go through it and they friggin' love it. And they're excited about what they got out of the course before you ever do any work with them. When there are other people that don't want to pay you or don't have the budget to pay you to work with you one-on-one, but they'll buy the course. So you already have a completely there is no cost other than whatever pennies it pays to host the thing and whatever platform you host it in. You already have something you can sell that is 100% scalable, and your place where you do calls, that is a group membership. It's a very simple one. It's I do calls and I have a Facebook group. You can ask whatever questions. It's once a week. Come if you want to come. That becomes a program you could actually put people straight into. So people could buy your course and go straight into your group coaching program that was designed initially to be support for your one-on-one clients. Your one-on-one clients will still show up, so you'll always have people in there. It's not like people are going to show up and it's empty, although sometimes I have calls where people don't show up. I have calls where I have one person. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be here anyway. I don't care. It makes no difference to me, and I love doing it. So it's great. You just got more free one-on-one consulting. I'm not ashamed by the fact that it's not 100 people on the call. I don't care. I'm doing the cost is already there to deliver the service. So you might have people go course into group coaching membership with these 2 calls. They might go one-on-one program, and then when they're done, they downgrade into that. They might just show up to it. Usually with most of those, you could charge a couple $100 a month for that, depending on how good you are on the fly with consulting or whatever. You could go put 100, 200 people in that thing without increasing your cost structure literally at all, because you're already delivering all of that for your one-on-one service clients. And then your academy, you just need an online funnel. It has no extra cost. They go to the academy. No one needs to look at comments there, because if they want to ask questions, they go into your membership. And all the infrastructure that's already covered by what you're charging for your agency, your service, your one-on-one thing. And if that whole thing's built on recurring revenue, right? The whole business runs on recurring revenue. Plus you've got these other 2 things where you can hit pops to cash without increasing what it takes for you to deliver at all. 37 Signal, or Basecamp guys used to be called 37 Signals. They talked about this principle of selling your byproduct, which is when all the lumber companies realized they could sell dust, right? All the sawdust. It's the same thing. It's oh, well, it makes my life easier to send them to these calls, and I could just sell the calls. Let's do that. It doesn't cost me anything extra. The training makes it easier to deliver the service. Let's just sell the training for people that want it. Great. I can make more money. So that's the idea of how you would actually add new scalable things. And maybe you are in this unique thing, or maybe it just doesn't fit for your personal return. Maybe you don't want an ongoing service. Then your group coaching for questions becomes the membership. It's hey, you get access to come ask me questions around this for up to 60 days after we're done with your service. And then after that, you can pay. It's a couple $100 a month. It's great. You should come. It's amazing. And then you get people into there, and that could be your recurring piece if you want.
Yeah, I love that. We've used the term sell your byproducts before as well. And if you do it in the order that we just mapped out, you'll have the byproducts to sell. My last question on this is you hear a lot of people say hey, if you're under $1 million, focus on one avatar with one offer, focused on one advertising marketing channel. What's your take on that as a service provider? Because we kind of do similar stuff as you. So it's I think over time you should have multiple income streams, but it kind of all needs to be built off of that first systemized service, in my opinion, for it to play nice.
Yeah, if I were starting anything new, I just wiped the slate clean. Now we're starting over. I would pick one group that I could get up in front of an audience, and there were some of the people in the group in there. I could be hey, if you're this, I want to talk to you. And I would attract them and repel everybody else. I'd pick a single group that I could get very, very clear about what their specific problems were. I would create a single way that I help them. And maybe a caveat. I don't know if this actually is counter to what they say. I'd focus on a single channel inbound, and then I would do a heavy amount of retargeting combined with email marketing. Exactly what we did, not on purpose, but it's exactly what I would do again. So we were Infusionsoft, now called Keep, used to be called Infusionsoft. That was it. That's all we worked with. Our incoming channel was speaking at events. And we spoke all over the place. I was traveling 2.5 times a month speaking at events, and it worked really well. We did a bunch of lead capture at events. And then in the follow-up, everything we did in the follow-up, we had email follow-up dialed in, and we did a ton of remarketing. It was super cheap to do. We showed up everywhere. And then when we would show up at events, people were you follow me everywhere. I'm yeah, well, that's what we do, I guess. I don't know. That familiarity makes it easier for people to eventually convert. So that's what I would do. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's not. I would be that's a good general benchmark. You'll kind of get a feel. For me, it's that product line is stable. So I do believe that you don't grow businesses, you don't scale businesses, you scale product lines. It's the only way that a business grows is that a product line grows. And I find it's way easier, and I'm way more focused, and it's way more tactical if I think, no, it's product lines. I don't care. So yeah, 6th division, we have 3 things. No, 6th division, what are we doing to grow the agency? What are we doing to grow the lab, which is that group membership? What are we doing to sell more of the academy? So it's just individual product lines. And the point when you start to branch to another product line is when the first one is stable across the entire client journey, meaning attention to lead, to the sales process, to the fulfillment. It's in. Okay, that thing's good. I got to have somebody monitoring it, but it's stabilized so it can grow or it can scale. Now I can say, okay, I want to go look at another thing. Whether it's another thing that I offer or whether it's another channel that I would go to, it's well, I'm going to stabilize the one channel I have. Then I'll go add another one. When you don't do that, what happens is you have something that's not quite stable. This another one is going to start to get some success. And because this seems to have more success than this that's wobbly, you start to focus more here, and then this really starts to fall apart. And then this will start to fall apart as you go out to the next one. And then you end up in this really crappy place, which I could tell you some really, really crappy details about because I've been there multiple times, where you take your eye off. You have to stabilize and get solid and have somebody own a piece. You want to be additive, not just replacing. Otherwise, you just end up replacing and you're chasing new revenue streams that seem to be really cool. But it's like, no, just make that one work. It'll work. It's there. So that would be my thought on that one.
I love it. Dude, I could talk to you for days. And this was amazing. I think any single person so stoked to share this with the channel, even with our clients, because I think the methodology is obviously very much in alignment with what we teach and believe, because very much heavily, I think I've said before, like watching what you did when I came into building automation and funnels for people, I very much emulated what I saw you guys doing. Thankfully, not knowing why, I was like, something about it made sense. And it's like, oh my God, like I didn't fall into some of those traps earlier on of being like the full service, everything to everybody, like I saw other people do. We still obviously made mistakes by like emulating what you guys had done and how like focused it was. It really set us off on like a new way of delivering services that I'm like so grateful for to this day. So
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap up, we did talk about just describing like what our actual structure is like right now. Because I know like we've talked a lot about it.
Yeah. Yes.
So we've talked a lot about, so quick recap of everything we talked about. Number one, be really clear what you're trying to create for yourself. Okay. Time, energy, money. Number two, systematize your service by creating a course that outlines the work that's going to be done that your team follows and then you give to your clients so they're prepared. Leverage that preparation so you can get more stuff done. And then also all support type stuff, put it into one single channel, a call a month, 2 calls a month, a call a week, whatever it is, so that you don't have to deal with that as you're working one-on-one. Then if it makes sense, add that recurring revenue piece, which really is you convert your one-time service into a recurring revenue program. And you started off with a little sprint at the beginning, then you just get into this. I talk about it as a jog. We sprint to get a bunch of stuff done. Then we're in a healthy jog where it's like, I don't know what you need, but I know you need at least this much. And so you're in a jog. And if you need a sprint, we can do another sprint later. But what that does is it's like, oh yeah, I just need them. I'm going to need them. I'm in business. I'm going to need what it is that they do on an ongoing basis. So I make that recurring revenue amount be enough. Not so much that it's like they're thinking about it every time. It's like, well, if not, then I would have to go, like, that's just a cost that's going to happen anyway. So I'll just give it to them because they're really good. And then as you've done that, at some point when that stabilizes, there'll be a time where it's like, oh, now I can take my byproduct, my course that I created, and those coaching calls that I do, and I can start to sell those. So that's the whole summary. And then what I found as I've talked to other people about similar topics, it's really helpful when we get into the very specifics of how like our business runs. This is not the only way to do it. It's what we do. And I'm sure people did it before us. So, but the reason why I'm going to share it is because I've also had other people that literally have created their business model with these exact same numbers in totally different industries. Okay. So here's how it works. Our whole business, it's a recurring revenue program. Like all of our revenue comes from, it's called the Master Builder program right now, but by the time you find us, hopefully it's rebranded the agency is what we want to call it. It's working one-on-one with clients. It's $2,200, $2,250 a month, I think. Got some inflation kicking in. Used to be $2,000 a month, but $2,250 or $2,200 a month, whatever. So let's just go with $2,000 a month. That's fine. And you're signing up for at least 6 months when you start. So it's $2,000 a month. You start with, I think it's $3,000 or $4,000 up front. So it's $3,000 to $4,000 up front. And then we do this, we call it an accelerator. That's our 1 day with you. So you sign up, we put you through the training, we do the accelerator. As soon as the accelerator's done, the next 1st or 15th of the month, your monthly starts. And it's $2,000 a month. So typically, and we have the dates of when the accelerators are available before our prospects come in. So if I got on a call with Greg today, he's like, yo, yeah, I want to do this. Let's sign up. I'd look at my calendar and be like, all right, cool. Hey, we got an accelerator on the 25th. So we'll do it that day. We'll get you into the training, or the next week you watch that. We'll do a kickoff call like in a week and a half. That'll prep us for the 25th. And then we'll be done on the 25th. And then on the 1st of next month, your $2,000 a month is going to start. And then you're in for 6 of those at least. Your job is let us know when you're ready to be done. It can be any time after that. And as soon as you let us know, your next bill is your last bill.
And so you do they do the course, they watch a little bit of training, and you have a kickoff call before the accelerator?
Before the accelerator, yes.
Okay. And what's the kickoff call then? The design, the plan?
The kickoff call is like, all right, cool. Let me know what your business is. What are we going to do? It's like the hit list of all the things we're going to do. This is what it is for us on the back end. For us, it's like, oh, I'm going to go grab that template and that one and that one and that one. And I'm going to have them ready for that day so I can just get a whole ton of stuff done. Then that day is like, boom, full on implementation. And then after that, we're basically into the monthly. And if you do it on the 25th, you get 6 days of a month technically free. You can get on the lab session call. You can get on any of the stuff that you want. You get all that stuff free before you're actually paying for the monthlies. And then on the 1st, in that case, your billing would go on the 1st, and then it just runs from there. So that's how we deliver. People roll in. It works great. We get a ton of progress up front, and then we're just into this cadence. And at any point, if they want, they can do one of two things if they want to go faster. Sometimes it's like, no, I got this one big thing coming up. They can just buy another accelerator. And so in the middle of a month, we'll just do another accelerator, which is just a day. So we'll do a kickoff call. We'll do an accelerator. We get a whole bunch of stuff done. Totally fine. We're good with that. Other people are like, look, I've got a bunch of stuff that's going to be happening for the next 3 to 6 months. They'll just take 2 spots. And so they just double up. We can get twice as much stuff done because they're acting as if they're 2 clients.
So in the agency offer where it goes, whatever, 3 or 4K up front into 2K a month for 6 months, and they could just keep going month to month from there, right? How does that
at the
then
end,
differ?
At the end, it automatically rolls into month to month until you tell us you want to stop, and then your next bill is your last bill.
And so how is that 2K a month recurring program different from the lab?
I don't even know what they charge for the lab. A couple $100 a month. The lab is, you don't get any one-on-one anything. The lab is, I get on a call once a week on Tuesdays. Jake gets on a call once a week on Thursdays. You have access to those calls. You have access to the recordings, and you have access to a Facebook group. That's it. If you're just by the lab. When you're in the agency program, the Master Builder program, you also get access to the lab. So that's just, it's just included at no extra cost. So you can come to those calls whenever you want for whatever you want.
Got it. But once they're in the recurring of the agency program, there's still implementation happening and you're meeting with them on a recurring basis.
The agency is on, there's 2 calls a month. And then off of those calls, we're doing implementation. That whole track is one-on-one. We could theoretically sell 4 different projects. We're just like, no, just get into our program. We'll just keep going. And then the lab, which is that group coaching, it's the question and answer session, sits on top. So real quick, this is only going to work people that can watch, but here you go. So it goes like this. Okay. So if you're not watching,
you
just
listening,
you just
wanted to break out the overhead cam.
I did. We didn't get to this. So here's how it goes. This is monthly one-on-one consulting and implementation. Starts with an accelerator up front. At any point in here, you can buy another accelerator, or if you wanted to, you could sign up for 2 spots in the agency. That's how you get more. Make sense? This is one-on-one. Now, when you're in here, you also get access to the lab. The lab is a group call twice a week, once with me, once with Jake, a Facebook group, and then recordings of the calls. It's group coaching. I do nothing to prepare for the call. I show up, I answer questions, I get off, and I'm done. It takes me 10 seconds to shut everything down and walk out of here. That's it. This is where all the questions that these people have that don't fit into projects that we're working on, all those questions come up here. So we're doing this anyway, but we also have the opportunity to charge for it. So this is 2K. This right here is, let's just say it's $200 a month to be a part of that, which is friggin' cheap in my opinion. We may be used to adjusting to that. That's the lab. And then up here we have the academy. And for the sake of this interview, the academy is our online course. Let's call that $500 or $1,000 or whatever for our training. That will come with like 30 or 60 days access to the lab. And then we try to roll you into a subscription. If you buy the agency, you get the academy, but we use it as training before we do the accelerator. Then you also get access to the lab. So if you buy this, you get everything.
Can you buy right into the lab?
I believe the way they set it up is yes. And then what you do if you buy directly in here is you get the academy. So essentially the pricing ends up being like you're buying academy and you're straight into lab. There's some discount on the academy and you just get access to it.
Got it.
And
cool.
You don't have to let people do all those things. That's the basic structure. This is how our business runs. And then from a business ownership standpoint, the only real question for us to make sure this thing works is how many clients can each one of my coaches handle realistically? So when I have a coach that's going to cost me, let's just say it's $100,000 or something, or $80,000 or $60,000 or whatever it is, I want to know how many $2,000 a month clients that person can cover. So if it's 20, which 2K based on what you're offering is probably a lot, but if it's 20, that means that each one of my coaches represents $40,000 a month in revenue. And then I just have to do the math to be like, okay, well, if I have $40,000 a month, how many coaches do I need to where I can cover my money making, I can cover my operational expenses, I can cover their salary, and then I have enough to actually hit my return. And again, remember, they do pay 3 to 4K up front for this accelerator, but that 3 to 4K is not factored into our model at all. That goes to fund our money making budget and it goes to pay commissions. That money is already divided up as soon as it comes in. Our operational expenses are all 100% based on the number of clients we have paying 2K a month, which means if we don't have clients cancel, I don't have to sell anything. I could not sell anything for 3 months if we have no clients cancel, and the business just continues to hum along. Sort of a personal belief of mine is if you can't press pause on sales in your business, I don't want to be a part of your business. I want to be able to press pause, gather my thoughts, sort of hang out for a second, and then keep going from there. So anyway, that's literally exactly how our business runs. We're always trying to do other stuff with lab. We want to have different courses in our academy eventually. And anytime our agency revenue dips below a key number, it's like, stop. Everything stops in the business. go fix that. That is the thing that makes everything work. So anyway, that's the final sort of example. So hopefully that was helpful. And I legitimately think that almost anybody running a services business, they could create something that's like, okay, it's $4,000 up front. It's going to be $2,000 a month, the minimum of 3 months. And here's how we're going to go run this. And then it's just a matter of, well, how many of those clients can I stack? And then how many do I need before I can hire my next coach to hand stuff off to? Like those numbers, they work really well. And if we got into it more, I could tell you exactly where you'd hire another person, where you'd bring in a manager. Like those, they just work. And if you flip your mindset to what would it take? What would I have to deliver in order for it to be worth $2,000 a month? Now, maybe it's $1,000 a month for you because you don't want to be sprinting with your clients every month. You want it to be like, it just makes sense that I pay it because I'm going to have to do about this much work anyway. And for our clients, it's $2,000. I found that to be true for a lot of others. Sometimes it might be $1,000. Like that's about all I need. You know, maybe I'm just doing little design projects, like $1,000 a month so I can kick out that postcard or that whatever, or I need to get this thing designed for my prezo or whatever. So maybe it's $1,000 a month. That just also means you're going to be doing less work for them. So you should be able to then handle more clients. All the math is going to even out about the same. It's probably somewhere between $30,000 to $40,000 of client revenue per coach that's working with your clients. It's going to fit somewhere in there, most likely.
Love it. Man, people are going to love this one. Where can people learn more about you?
Go to sixthdivision.com. You can email me if you have questions or whatever, and then Aaron will get them and probably send you to someone that's better suited to answer your questions. But that's brad@sixthdivision.com. We are launching a thing called Smooth Scaling. That is like the whole business structure, how to organize all the different pieces. You can go to smoothscaling.co. There's like a temporary waiting list. That'll be coming out soon. And then we got some other things that as of the recording of this are not launched, but we hope to be launching soon. So we should be having a YouTube channel and stuff. Not quite up. So easiest thing would be either email, go to smoothscaling.co, go to sixthdivision.com. Yeah. Or ask Greg, and Greg knows how to get a hold of me too. So.
Dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, the
You are
time
welcome.
and the knowledge, as always. One of the people I love speaking to the most. So
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you do and everything you're about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.